My best friend knows me inside out. We grew up together and he's been always my constant companion. We went through thick and thin. He really knows everything about me, has always been there for me, hasn't even let me down. Sometimes it seems like he knows me better than I know myself. He's quite strong and also quite stubborn. That's good, because he's always protected me. There really wasn't one second when he didn't suddenly rush into my side to protect me from external tendentious dangers. So he's also a bit of a control freak, and even more paranoid than I've ever been. Well, he got in my way quite often, I have to say. And he also closed some doors for me, or simply didn't let me through, out of concern for me and because he wanted to protect me. He makes a mountain out of a molehill. Seen from this point of view, he is sometimes very strenuous and also behaves a bit like an animal. I didn't always like that. So in such a close coexistence there is also strife. I had to set my limits. When I realized that his care was very possessive, I confronted him. But he's just so damn sensitive, and how many times he has saved my life, as it seemed, at least from situations that we didn't want to experience again or to feel again. To the point where we sometimes didn't experience much anymore because of our hill buildings. We preferred to entrench ourselves. But this sensitivity and his inner fears made him a person. That's why I appreciated it. After all, he is my best friend. What we've been through, madness. So it was time to find compromises, set priorities and agree, somehow. It was difficult for me because of his qualities, which were difficult from my point of view. That's probably what he thought. But we sat across from each other and somehow we made it. We had an in-depth conversation like never before, clarifying things once and for all for a certain time or a certain phase of our lives that we've been mastering together for a very, very long time. We were able to make a deal that ultimately worked for both of us. It took a bit of discussion, but then we both had the security. We could trust each other on a newer, deeper level and engage in that compromise. It may not have been all I hoped for, but for him it was a big risk, and since we are going down the road together, it's better if we understand each other. I don't like to see him suffer either. For both of us, it was an experience. A conversation where we really discussed each other, worked out a plan together, took a new standpoint, where both our priorities were taken into account. It's done a lot in us. It processed in us. Our bond has changed. A new form of trust has arisen. But when old things dissolve, it can be very strenuous and express itself somatically. After 3 days, he fell into a depression. It was his first real depression, and immediately a big one. In the past, he has had mild phases or episodes of depression, but more in the normal range as experienced by every second teenager today. This depression lasted for 3 months and was deep black. I've never seen him like this before. It scared me. He had never locked himself in for 5 days in a row and turned off all contact possibilities. The only thing that kept me calm at that moment was the knowledge of his strong, deeply ingrained faith that kept him from doing anything bad to himself. Somehow, I managed to take him to a festival 2 months later. He was still in his major depression. Now we were there. He got some fresh air, saw colorful figures around him, and was maneuvered out of his hole. But he didn't want to leave the tent. I don't even know if we were at the front of the stage this year and pet admission. I think we really didn't make it away from the campground. I tried to cheer him up, to show him the light, but every time he even blinked in the direction, he immediately turned everything black again. That was our festival week. Until we met a woman. I heard her running up from afar, very strange noises. Kind of shattering, quacking, waddling like a what? Definitely funny. I can't really put her into words. She's her very own mosaic of stories. But in that moment she seemed to me a glimpse into our gloomy festival night existence. Sitting at the tent with a few candles around it and tendencies of listening to the music streaming from the stage. At that moment she seemed amusing to me. As she waddled around with her strange noises and movements, I had to laugh. But the other one just choked again. So it was a laugh and a nagging. It turned out that she was running so oddly because firstly she didn't want to run in the mud where the campground was completely sunk, and so with her cute little feet she chose the grass top path as I've done since then. Secondly, she practiced running without glasses to train her vision. Her ordinary eyes could see absolutely nothing at that moment, a pretty crazy figure that I liked right away. She also saw what was going on with us, but wanted to celebrate, which I could understand. And so she said to me, "Come to me tomorrow." Said, done. The next afternoon, we managed again somehow with strong persuasiveness and the help of another buddy to visit the woman who lived only 20 meters away at her tent. There we were. And without knowing him, she immediately called him by his name. She said to him, "You're the pure ego." He felt completely caught. That didn't sweet him at all, but in the purest conflict he couldn't deal with it and was simply overwhelmed by his reaction. Luckily, we didn't have to stay any longer. He was absolutely irritated and wanted to go back to the tent. She gave me a tea she had collected from her garden, made from lemon balm and a hint of lavender, and told me how to prepare it and said to me, come back tomorrow. We drank the tea and slept really well that night, and it was like a miracle. The next day he was somewhat back to himself, and a lot of his deep black depression has subsided. Although he still needed some protection and retreat, he was able to smile slightly again. Maybe he felt so lost in this huge change in our relationship that he no longer knew who he was. When this woman called his name, he seemed to be able to remember it. Since then, we have had a great relationship. He is still my faithful companion. Of course, there have always been minor disputes over time, but now we know each other so damn well that we always manage to get along well together, even without agreeing, because we both still often want completely different things. But he is and will always be my best friend. So, Ego, thank you for everything you, friend, have done for me. Without you, I certainly wouldn't have experienced anything more, because without you, I wouldn't even exist. Namaste.